Hello, everybody. I'm John. This is Strategic Investing, and today I got to sit down with Xtract One Technologies CEO Peter Evans. We talked about the last quarter, the results on that, and the resulting drop in the stock, what kind of caused that, everything around there, as well as how they're transitioning from that, and what kind of growth trajectory we should be looking at going forward. We also touched on One Gateway, some of the timeline with that, the interest they're seeing, and some channel partners they've been signing as well. That was pretty interesting. So if you're an Xtract One investor or if you are just hearing about Xtract One, I hope you enjoy the interview and I hope you get some value out of it. All right, Peter Evans, how are you today? I've heard you've been pretty busy, but how you doing?
Very well, John. It's good to see you. It's been a while. We haven't done this in a while. I've been a little jet lagged. I just got back from an international trip that was very, very successful, and pleased to be back at home though. Business is good. We're actually feeling very, very chipper these days about where we're going and what's happening.
Okay, that's good to hear. To kind of just start it off, obviously, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask about the Q1 numbers. Not the best numbers, not the numbers we wanted to see. The main explanation on the call was, some delayed customers and things like that, some other stuff. Can you just maybe touch on that? I know you've talked about this before, but maybe a little extra context. And also just maybe talk about moving into, Q2 and the back half of the year, kind of how we should be thinking about these numbers as a trend moving forward or kind of shifting and accelerating off of these numbers.
Yeah. So, John, uh, there's sort of some good news and some things to share here. The first off, let's talk about things to share. I was unhappy with the productivity of our sales leadership and some of our sales staff. We have some people who are absolutely excellent and best in class, others who were not delivering. And we saw the results of that work their way through in Q1. We changed out sales leadership. We've added new quality regional sales managers, and we shored up the sales organization. We've also shored up on the channel side of things. I think as we've talked about before previously, we were primarily a direct organization, and that was intentional. And so with that, I wanted to have the proximity to the customers to be able to ask them the questions, what do you like about the competition? What don't you like about the competition? And make sure that we can improve upon that, whether that was in the product, whether that was in service, whether that was engagement style, contracting. We wanted to make sure on every front we were better.
Hmm.
And then once we started to get the product to a point where it was out of the box, simple to install, simple to deploy, it was the perfect time to move to the channels. Again, some gaps in some sales leadership led to some challenges where that partner channel did not deliver, was not signed up in the manner it should. And we've rectified and we've corrected that. I'm very pleased to say that we've brought on board in the last, I want to say, quarter or so, some of the top channel partners for some of the competition. And so that's kind of put a nice stability under us. So what we saw was a little bit of an issue with some sales challenges, some channel challenges that weren't delivered on the way they were supposed to. And as that worked its way through the system, we saw some weak Q1. The other issue we had with Q1 was it had some challenges with some customers. One of our large automotive customers, in fact, two of them were affected by the negotiations with the Union of Auto Workers. And as such, plans to deploy systems were delayed. It was the last thing they wanted to do was put these systems in place while you're negotiating a contract, not the right message to send. We also had one major arena that was going through negotiations on renovations, was looking to deploy, several dozen systems, and they delayed that. So that impacted our revenue. So there were some of these one-time events, as well as some cleaning up of our own shop that we needed to do to get back on track. I'm pleased to say we've got some very quality sales people in place now. We've kept the ones who are good. We've upgraded where we had to. And that's really starting to show some good dividends right now. And I think we're back on track. As we get towards, 3 days left in the quarter, I'm very pleased with some of the signings that we've done. And I think we're back on the trajectory that we were before in terms of the progress and the growth and the contracts. It'll take a little bit of a while for those signings to then convert to revenue. Can't ship all those systems in the next 3 days, but we'll start
Hmm.
moving those out the door as we get into Q3.
Okay. Okay. That's good to hear. I mean, when we're talking about the next quarter and the next few quarters, One Gateway is obviously a big factor in that. Can you, you've talked a little bit about this, but can you just reiterate and give us kind of some timeline updates on that, as well as, since you probably, you seem like, in the next couple of months you might be starting to get those ready to ship out. Can you talk about, maybe how much of the pipeline and whatnot that One Gateway is impacting there?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things on One Gateway and some clarification. There's this question about like where are we with certifications? So let's address that one first. Every product, every piece of electronic technology has to be certified. You can't sell it. It gets one of those little stickers that goes on it. Look on the back of your phone or on the inside, you'll see those kinds of marks also, or on the bottom of your toaster. You cannot sell these things out in the marketplace without those certifications. That work is done. And that was the work I referenced before. People were thinking more like certifications like DHS Safety Act certification. You can sell without that. It's primarily the sports teams who want DHS Safety Act certification. Now, so we've done those certifications. That's been completed, and we're now ramping up into with our subcontract manufacturer, building out the jigs, building out the processes, getting all the parts in. Some of these parts have 6-week, 8-week lead times. Now that we've got that certification, we know the product is buildable. We're going out and doing the supply chain work and the manufacturing process work with a subcontract manufacturer. We are on track. I think we've always talked about being end of first calendar quarter, beginning of next calendar quarter. So end of March, April timeframe that we will start shipping those units. I think the first 6 are actually going into a customer in about 2 weeks from now. That's the first customer who's actually had a beta system for almost a year now. And they've had thousands of employees going through it every single day. And that's gathered a lot of data for us. So it's on track to deliver. Now, in terms of what does it mean to Smart Gateway? What does it mean to our pipeline? As we've talked about a little bit before, the Smart Gateway is targeted to a certain type of marketplace, hospitals, arenas, stadiums, and it does very, very well in those marketplaces. I was at a recent conference with some 36 CSOs from the hospitals, and they talked about the need to catch even the smallest little tiny razor blades because the proximity of the nurse to the patient who's having an episode of some kind means that, a smallest weapon can be very tragic. So we have to have that degree of accuracy in even the tiniest weapons. Smart Gateway was built for that. One Gateway is much more targeted to schools. It's targeted towards convention centers, commercial office buildings, where the average person is walking in with that larger backpack with all the laptops. Right now, it's very good on guns and larger knives. And as we continue to innovate, we'll start to look at the possibility to get down to the smaller knives also. We've been demoing it in schools, and the feedback has been fantastic. We demoed it up at a convention center recently. They want to order as quickly as they can. I'm very, very pleased with the uptake on One Gateway. So to answer your question, if anything, One Gateway is expanding our pipeline into segments where previously people were going, the false alert rate on us and our competitors is just too high. I have to do too many bag searches. Now, the question always comes around, well, Peter, why didn't you go after schools earlier? Why are you just now going after schools? It didn't make sense to me, and it didn't make sense to many of the schools that we talked to. If I'm going to alert on 100% of the laptops, right? It just seemed wrong to make people pay you millions of dollars for something that was very, very frustrating to operate. Didn't make sense. But as more and more of the schools were having more and more tragedies and saying, we have to do something. And if they're willing to pay for other solutions that were going to have 100% alert rates on laptops, then why not us? So we jumped into the school marketplace, and we're using that as a springboard, with people we've announced like Lakewood, and got 2 or 3 dozen schools now. And we're using that as a jump point to say, okay, we're a player here with One Gateway, and those customers have already deployed those schools with Smart Gateway have become great references for us. Those references are more about, did the product work, which it works very well, but also, are they a good company to work with? Do they provide great support? All these sorts of things, which has given us that referenceability to all the other schools. So anyhow, a little slower to jump into the school marketplace because it didn't make sense originally, but we're now accelerating that school marketplace very, very well. On our next call, John, I'm going to share with you some videos from some schools that have demonstrated the One Gateway. We're being a little cautious about how we use that because for obvious reasons, reasons. We don't want to show the faces of the children as they come through the
Sure.
schools and
Yeah.
things, but you can get a real taste test of these kids just flowing in as if there was nothing there, just going to class like they would normally. They've all got their backpacks on, they got their laptops, they got their hydro flask bottles, they've got little metal bento boxes, and they're just all rolling in. And then the guard goes in with a gun on his hip, and not only does it alert on that, but it shows it's a gun.
Wow.
That's unique.
Yeah, no, that all sounds really good. One thing I do want to follow up on there, you talked about, false positives and stuff. I know in a
Mhm.
previous interview, I think you mentioned, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you mentioned the false positive rate being around 20% or so. And
Yeah.
that seemed a little high to me, and maybe there's a disconnect here in what really the customers are looking for and what the investors expect. Or maybe, I'm thinking of I'm just thinking, one out of every five people that aren't carrying a weapon, it's alerting on, and maybe that's not how you guys are defining false positives. So can you just kind of maybe clarify, how you guys are thinking about that, how customers are, obviously the customers seem very happy with it. So, and maybe there's an end goal that's much lower. Can you just kind of give some extra context around there?
Yeah. So again, John, there's probably two or three thoughts that kind of mix into that answer. The first is when we had our first beta of the one gateway that we took to that one customer about a year ago, and I mentioned 2,000 of their employees going through with their backpacks and laptops, we were probably at about a 50% false positive that rate at that point. It was a beta.
Mm-hmm.
And with that customer and with others, we keep working on the AI algorithms and lowering the alerts and lowering the alerts and lowering the alerts to bring them down. And we're sort of sitting around 20% with that amount of clutter. And if you were at the GSX demo that we did back in the fall last year, we had people walking through we did something intentional. We know the four items that our competition alerts on all the time: eyeglass cases, three-ring binders. We stuffed a backpack with all of those items and more, and then walked through it, none of it alerted. That was
Yeah.
done a little intentionally, okay? And think of it from this perspective of school. I can take the kids through a walk-through metal detector. I'm going to have them put their bag to the side and have a security guard look through that. How many security guards is that going to take if you're high school with 1,500 kids and they've only got 15 minutes to get to class? Some of the schools have told us that they've actually had to take teachers out of the early tutorial classes and the parents who are doing the traffic drop-off support and bring them in to do the backpacks. Now you're taking away from education, okay?
Yeah.
That's not what you're trying to do. So if you were going to take them through a walk-through metal detector, 100% alerts and very slow ingress. Now go to competitive solutions. Every backpack's alerting. Or I'm turning it down to such a level where I'm missing all the weapons. So now I've got
Okay.
a 100% alert rate. So with ours, we're sitting at 20% and 80% of the kids are going right into class.
Yeah.
I've reduced the mean ingress time. I've reduced the number of security staff. Could it get better? Absolutely. What we're looking at with the analysis we've done with the data that we've collected at some of the schools we've been demonstrating, we think we can go into the low teens quite easily. But that, like any AI algorithms, you improve that over time. It's a matter of 100% of backpack searches or 20%.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Um, Let me just switch gears a little bit and one more time kind of go back to kind of what happened in the previous quarter and with the stock price obviously being lower. A lot of people are wondering, why is the stock price just sticking around here? What can we do? And so, I just kind of want to ask one. I know you actually did recently, I think a couple of weeks ago, you made a purchase of shares yourself. That is definitely, something that I think will give investors a lot of confidence if you maybe want to touch on that. But also, are you guys thinking about any new strategies as far as marketing, as far as, go to market with the sales? Can you just maybe give us some insights into how you guys are kind of managing the business right now?
Yeah. So a couple of things. First off, the stock price. I think we had a little bit of a perfect storm of two, three things all happening in succession. The first is we had, a poor Q1, and again, not something I'm happy with or something I'm proud of, but we had some assorted things we could control and things we couldn't control that kind of conspired against us. But I'm feeling very good that we're back on track again. The second thing is when we made the announcement on December 9th, it was late in the year. And so a lot of people were surprised by the soft results after the great year we had the prior year. And a lot of people started to worry about, okay, is this a bump in the road or is this more? It was a bump in the road. And so, we had a flat tire and we jacked up the car and we replaced the tire. We're now back racing down the road. Then you had, of course, December is always a challenging time. There's always people looking for, tax write-offs and, losses on their stock. So they
Yeah,
start selling to take those tax losses. So
sure.
then you had a little bit of a downward spiral because of that. And then, we've traced certain activities, but there's been some significant sales by some significant sellers if you track what's happening with the stocks. And while we don't get all the specific details, and it's hard to understand who that is, um, one of the investment banks that took us to market and brought in some of the shares in some of our last rounds
Yeah,
has essentially collapsed and sold off the assets. And in that process, they started to monetize whatever they could out of any of the shares, and that put significant downward pressure. So you had sort of this domino effect of three events all in a row.
sure.
And then, of course, any PR agency will tell you the end of the year is never a good time to put out news if you've got it. So now that we're kind of back on track again, to answer your question about what are we going to do, we're going to ramp up the marketing again. We're going to ramp up some of the social media posts. We're going to ramp up some more of the press releases. We're going to ramp up some of the things that we think are significant for the business. I don't expect the press releases to like massively change the stock price,
Hmm.
but it's more about trying to give the investors an understanding of what's going on in the business and help them understand. It's been nose down right now. I mean, everyone in the company, I love our staff. Everyone has gone full bore on whatever they can do to make Q2 back on track again. And so that's been the focus. We had one more hour to spend today. It's all about serving a customer, getting them to sign and getting them to install. And so we haven't spent as much time on the press releases. So we've got to ramp up our communication to the market and accordingly to the investors also. Why
Makes
we're
sense.
doing this. Why we're doing this, John, you and
Yeah,
I.
yeah. No, I appreciate you coming on. And I do like, obviously at this point, like you said, I think you've talked about how we've transitioned from the stock moving a bunch on press releases to now, okay, the business is proven, the product is proven, now we want to see the results, and that's
Mhm.
what's going to move the stock price. But it is, like you said, still nice to, as an investor, throughout the year, throughout the quarter, until we get those results to see that, business is moving
Yeah,
along.
business is healthy. To come to your comment about buying shares, yeah, I like our company. Like anyone, I have my bills to pay. I've got, I had to move house recently. My daughter just went to university, and those tuition bills can get pretty expensive. But when I've got a little bit of extra cash, and I think it's the right time to buy, and I also get blacked out quite a bit because I've got knowledge about all the different signings we're doing and things like that. So when the window opens up that I'm allowed to buy, if and as my finances allow me to, I intend to because I can see that we're in a good place. And again, the market keeps coming to us. I'm surprised now by the amount of international interest that's pulling us to move into international markets faster than we originally thought. And we've got to be cautious. We don't want to do that too fast and spread ourselves too thin. The company made that error in the past. And there's so much business right here in our backyard that we're trying to serve as fast as we can.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. The one thing kind of on that, you mentioned some things and growing and kind of springboarding off of Q1 as you change the flat tire and get going again. What is kind of, if you could touch on a couple of things that's really kind of giving you the confidence to say that you're gonna get back into the same growth trajectory as we've seen before? Is it one gateway? Is it what you're seeing, around that with schools or certain industries? Can you maybe just touch on a couple key things there?
Yeah, I think there's sort of three or four key things, John, that are all come together nicely. The first is some of the partners we've signed recently are notable,
Okay.
and they're starting to put their time and their investment in bringing One Gateway to the forefront as their kind of premier product. That's very, very compelling to me, particularly as we start to see that some of these partners may have previously represented other products. And as some of those other products are coming up for renewal on their business, they're starting to intercept that with a product like One Gateway. So you think of a large school that's about to, renew their contract, and they're saying, well, wait a minute, is there something better out there in the marketplace, and those partners who are trusted partners are aggressively pushing us. So I think we've finally got the partner channel rolling with some quality organizations,
Mm-hmm.
people who've delivered, strong amounts of revenue for competitors' solutions. So that's pleasing to me. Two, I like what One Gateway is doing. We've just completed a 2-week demo with one school system, and we're going to try and develop a white paper out of that if we get permission to do so, to publish some of those results. And, I was there for the second day of that demonstration to get down there as my schedule allowed. And the superintendent came over to me and said, "Can you just leave it? Like, we love it. We don't need to do the 2 weeks. Let's go." Right. And they loved it. The children were just streaming in, and this was very notable. So we're going to be using that system and that school back to ramping up our marketing at an upcoming event that's probably going to have representatives for school safety for all 50 states.
Wow.
And so, we're doing these sorts of things to get out there and use case studies to promote the product out into the marketplace. So One Gateway is definitely, the second contributing factor into the momentum that I feel. The third is international. We've done a little bit of business internationally. It's been quality business internationally, but the amount of pull that we're suddenly getting from places in Europe and other areas around the world is overwhelming. Last week, I think I was personally involved with over a dozen different demos in 5 days with some major sports organizations in Europe. And, there's high interest there. So we're very pleased with that.
Okay. One thing on the One Gateways, or actually a couple things. One, when you guys do start selling those, just on a financials question here, do you plan to break out the sales, whether it's Smart Gateway or One Gateway, or will they all be kind of in bookings together?
That's a great question, John. And I haven't really put too many cycles into thinking about that. I think it would be very beneficial to show people kind of the separation because they
Hmm.
do serve two different markets.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
I want to be very specific. The Smart Gateway has a place that's doing very, very well. It's very pleasing to me how many hospitals are choosing Smart Gateway because of the issue where they've got to catch the tiniest little razor blades.
Hmm.
One Gateway clearly serving schools and convention centers. So that is, a great place. So I think because we're serving different markets, it would make a lot of sense. I could also see us starting to separate out as more and more business grows internationally, how much is domestic versus international. So you can see the trajectories and the growth there too.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I think all of that would just, kind of give us a better picture. I think also even the separation of One Gateway and Smart Gateway would maybe also give us some better insights into your seasonality and what we should be expecting,
Yeah,
because the different customers purchase at different times and things like that.
agreed. Agreed. I would caution any investors though, like if we don't do the separation initially,
Hmm.
it's probably because of that seasonality. And we don't want people to go, wow, they sold 51
Oh,
gateways
it's
this quarter,
yeah,
but
I
only
can
only
when you
two
first
the
start
next
off.
quarter.
Yeah,
Right.
that
Yeah.
makes
And
sense.
once we've got a little more of a smooth curve, then we could do that.
Actually, just one more thing on Smart Gateway. Just kind of in more curiosity question here. I know you've talked to a lot of superintendents and principals and whatnot. Have you talked to any parents specifically? And I'm just kind of curious what their thoughts, kind of how you see a lot of these parents thinking about one, your systems, but also just the, kind of physical security metal detector, weapons detector. I know a lot of people kind of view it as a negative. It makes, has a bad optics, it makes the students feel like, why are they being checked? A lot of people, I'm sure, on the complete opposite side, especially if they've, personally experienced an incident, they're like, throw everything we got at the, anything that we can do to protect our kids, So have you kind of, any insights, anything, stories you want to share?
Well, whether it's Smart Gateway or One Gateway, um, I think there's always a little bit of trepidation about the unknown.
Hmm.
I think there's always a little bit of caution, but the caution is more around, are you, the schools, doing the right thing? Are you doing enough? And
Hmm.
there's been school sort of situations where, like there was a story last week where someone was shot, a student was shot, and they were actually using a weapons detection solution, not a gateway that you'd walk through, most of our competitors, but one
Hmm.
of those solutions where you've got AI on cameras to detect the
Yeah, that was
weapon,
like Tennessee or something, right?
something like that. I
Okay.
can't recall
Yeah.
specifically. And so I think there's a lot of trepidation around
Okay.
buyer's remorse. The unfortunate thing about the physical security industry is it's characterized by, let's just say, exuberant marketing,
Yeah.
right? And some companies get under investigation by the FTC for it, or SEC or others, right? But I think the parents want to know, and they want to hold the schools accountable. If you're going to do something, have you done your job? Have you done your proper due diligence? Have you done your analysis?
Sure.
And there's a lot of, I think, buyer's remorse where somebody puts in a system and they open up the school and the kids are standing in line for 2 hours to get in.
Yeah.
Or you have to go start saying you're not allowed to carry in binders, you're not allowed to carry in X or Y. Again, I've said this before, technology should be there to solve problems, not create new problems. So what we found though in general, like I've yet to hear any resistance to our solution. In fact, there's more applause around it.
Okay.
Just on face value, um, people feel good that their kids are being comfortably protected and done so in a very non-invasive way. It's not like going through a big box metal detector that
Yeah.
feels like a penitentiary.
Hmm.
And, again, next call, I'll show a video. And when you see these kids walking in like there are today, I think there's a sense of peace that comes to the parents. And then they
Sure.
know the
Yeah.
systems have been tested.
Hmm.
So the fact that we built something that's very aesthetically pleasing, very covert, very non-invasive, that we're able to show people that should there be alert, it's in the backpack, it's in the pocket, gives the parents comfort that their child isn't going to get frisked like a felon.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, that's
Which,
yeah, I didn't think about that one. Yeah.
well, it's I don't know a better way of saying it, but the last thing I would want as a parent is some stranger frisking my
Sure,
daughter.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
No, it's
creepy.
yeah, I know I used to be a teacher and there were that was like one of the principal and everything. It's like, hey, you don't put your hands on a kid unless you need to. Not just from a parent standpoint, but the schools, it's something they worry about from a liability standpoint as well.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
less they put themselves in a position where even if nothing happens, a lawsuit could happen, and who knows where that goes. And yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
totally get it.
yeah. Well, as an example, in the UK, they're not allowed to screen children under 16
Okay.
because the majority of screening that is done over there is done either with a hand wand, so you're now in close proximity, or it's pat downs.
Hmm.
And so there's actually very interesting acceptance of a solution like ours, saying we could just scan everyone. We don't have to separate the parents from the children and frisk them, and so just everyone just keeps walking in. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of, I don't know, a better way of saying it, joy or relief
Sure.
that everyone could go in and screen. So there's a lot of relief that, okay, 100% of people are getting screened without the invasiveness. But in general, it comes down to good education and experience. That's why we like doing demos, because once you've done the demo, once the children walk through it, the aha moment happens, the
Sure.
superintendent see it, the
Yeah.
parents see it. I went and did a presentation at Tift County Schools, and they had about 7 or 8 other schools there, which is why I went there, to make sure we were getting the message out and driving more marketing activities. And it was 3 hours drive from where I live, so it was easy. But once people saw it and they actually walked through it into that presentation, they didn't realize they'd walked through our system into that hall.
Hmm.
And then we talked about it. There was a lot of aha moments.
Oh.
And so I think we've hit upon something special for the parents.
That's good. That's good. Well, I know we've taken up a little bit of your time here, but to finish it off, one last question. Can you just talk a little bit more about kind of as specific as you can get? I know you're not going to give any guidance here, but looking forward, I know you said you're reaccelerating, moving into Q2, Q3. Can you just maybe kind of what we should be expecting, set up some realistic expectations for us here, and then anything else that you want to kind of leave investors with?
Yeah, I'm feeling very good about our bookings numbers as we look for the rest of the fiscal year. Um, We'll see how we do on revenue because the revenue trails bookings, and we had a little bit of a lag in Q1, but we're working very hard to address that. And so, I'm still feeling very good about the business, feeling very, very good about the trajectory for the business. We obviously don't put out guidance,
Hmm. Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah, I'm more so asking,
We're back.
I know a lot of people with Q1, Q2, they're also thinking about the cash position, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. So we're fine. I have no plans to go out to the market in the short term unless someone came along and said, "Hey, if you could do X as a feature,
Sure.
that would mean we would buy these hundreds or thousands of units."
Yeah.
Then, of course, that's a great capital investment to make.
Hmm.
And you try and do that on like project-based funding or something like that. But overall, we're good. We're stable. We're adding a little bit to the staff, but trying to manage that OpEx as we have always in the past. I'm feeling we're fine.
That's good to hear. All right. Well, Peter, thank you as always, for taking this time. I appreciate it. I'm sure the other investors do, and I'm looking forward to Q2, Q3 results.
Yeah, so am I. We're closing every day as much as we can.
All right. Well, have a good day, Peter. Thank you.
Take care, John. Thank you.